Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inflectra's Level 2 test automation series called Planet Test Automation First Steps. You're joining us for our third webinar in the series, and today's topic is automating mobile UI testing. Today's webinar will be presented by Denis Markitsev, a principal software developer at Inflectra Corporation. He is one of the creators of the Rapise test automation platform. He holds a master's degree in computer science and PhD in mathematics, and has been working in the IT industry for the past 20 years in areas such as compilers, development environments, software verification, and testing. My name is Teresa, and I'll be your moderator today. Before I turn it over to Denis, let's cover a few housekeeping issues. Today's webinar will last for about an hour and will consist of a theoretical part, a practical part, and end with a Q&A session. We ask that you save your questions until that time and use the built-in questions tab to send questions. These will then be read out and answered. Today's webinar will be recorded. In a couple of days, we'll make the webinar recording available on Inflectra's YouTube channel under the playlist called Planet Test Automation First Steps. Please note that this webinar playlist is unlisted for the duration of the webinar series. So prior to February 1st, 2020, you will need to have a direct link to access the recordings in this webinar series. Links to each webinar recording will be emailed to you in a few days after the live webinar. Or you can subscribe to Inflectra's YouTube channel to get notified when new recordings become available. To give you a little more information about the webinar series as a whole, Planet Test Automation First Steps is Inflectra's Level 2 automation webinar series. This series builds on Inflectra's earlier test automation series, Test Automation Demystified. This Level 2 series moves beyond the fundamentals and dives into the major technologies where test automation is used. The 5 webinars will cover UI, desktop, mobile, and API test automation. You can learn more about the series by clicking on the URL shown in your handout and also on the screen here. For those of you not familiar with our test automation webinars, we recommend that you check out our Level 1 series, Test Automation Demystified, available on our YouTube channel. We are also pleased to offer Planet Test Automation First Steps as a certificate course. The series participants are eligible to receive a certificate of completion, given that they have met the webinar attendance and quiz requirements. If you wish to get a certificate, you'll be asked to take a short quiz after each webinar. To make things easier for you, we will send out a webinar follow-up email that contains all the materials covered in the webinar, including links to each quiz. For a full set of certificate requirements, please refer to the Frequently Asked Questions document linked in your handout. Last but not least, as I mentioned earlier, each webinar in the series has a practical part. We will demonstrate the key practical test automation concepts using Inflectra's own platform, Rapise. If you haven't downloaded the tool yet, please visit www.inflectra.com/Rapise. Feel free to use Inflectra's 30-day free trial. Now I'll turn it over to our presenter, Denis.
Thank you for the introduction, Teresa. It was great as usual. Hi, everyone. Thank you for attending today. And today I'm going to talk about mobile testing. And this is really important topic because many consumer applications nowadays have web and mobile clients. And according to some research, more than half of network traffic is mobile traffic these days. So testing applications on mobile phones is very important. So we have actually 2 major platforms for mobiles. It's Apple iOS and Android from Google. And on each of those platforms, we may have 2 types of applications running. There may be web applications running in the browser, like Chrome or Safari, and there may be native applications built specifically for those platforms. Also, since the number of devices and different versions of operating systems is very high, and new versions of operating systems and new devices are released almost every year, We need to test on many of them, and this is why sometimes to do testing, we may need to use not real physical devices, but virtual devices. So we may use a simulator on iOS and use emulator on Android platform. And it brings us to the landscape that you can see here on the screen. So this is what we'll be using for testing. Okay, and today for demonstration, I'll be using the application called Crate, and it has all the sources published on the GitHub, so you may use this link to go to GitHub. So actually, let me show it to you. So here is the GitHub place where this application is stored. You may clone it and you may build it on your own computer and run it easily. This application is a sample web and mobile application, and you only need to install Node.js to run this application. So it's very, very lightweight and very simple to download and run on your machine. So I'll be using it. And since this application has web and mobile clients, we'll be testing 3 flavors of this application. So it will be web UI, native Android UI, and native iOS UI. So let's go to testing. To do testing, we need to do some preparations in our desktop environment. So to do testing, I will use 2 machines. So one of the machines is Mac Mini running Mac OS. So I need this machine anyway to be able to test or iOS applications. So I'll be using it to run my virtual devices, and also I will plug my physical devices to this machine. To be able to test, I need some software to be installed on this machine. I will need Node.js, NPM, Appium, Android Studio, and Xcode. So actually, Appium is something like, if you heard about Selenium for web applications, Appium is very similar, but it's for mobile applications. Appium is a server, and it connects to the applications and to virtual and physical devices, and it provides interface for other solutions to do testing. As other solution doing testing, I'll be using rupees. So let's look at the setup in more details. So here is my Mac machine. So first, to install Appium, I need to have Node.js installed on the machine. So it is pretty easy to check if Node.js is installed or not. So you may open terminal and run a command node -v. So I have Node installed. Also, let's check that I have npm on the machine. Yes, I have. If you don't have Node installed on your machine, then you may use this command. So it's brew install Node. I won't be running this command because I already have Node installed, but if you don't have it, you may install Node with this very simple command. Then when Node is on your machine, you may install Appium. To install Appium, you need to run npm install -g, it means global, and Appium as a package name. So if you run it, you will install the latest version of Appium on your machine. So I have it already. Let's check its version. Okay, so I have the latest version of Appium installed. So my environment is almost prepared. Also, let's check other softwares that I need for testing. So I have Android Studio. So Android Studio is used to build Android applications. And what's important for us is that Android Studio includes Virtual Device Manager. This is a component that allows us to build virtual devices with different, so let's make it more magnified. So we may build different virtual devices with different versions of Android iOS and different emulated hardware. Okay, so this is Android Studio. It also contains SDK, and it allows Appium to connect to virtual devices and physical devices. So to test iOS, I need Xcode to be installed on the machine. So, and I have it installed. So here it is. This is Xcode application. It's used to build applications for iOS, and it's used by Appium to connect to physical devices and virtual devices as well. So I have everything installed and ready on this machine. And on my machine, I have Rupis installed, and Rupis will be connecting to Appium to perform recording and playback of mobile tests. Okay, so let's proceed to the first type of application we are going to test. First, we'll be testing web flavor of Create application. So first of all, I have this application running on Mac machine as well. So how to run this application and how to install it, you may find this information here on GitHub. So there is step-by-step instruction how to run the application. Okay, so let's start testing. First, since I'm going to test web applications, it's much easier to first do recording of a test right on the desktop, so without even using mobile devices. So I'm going to create a new test in Rupis. Let's call it Create Web Test. It will be web test, so I'm choosing web here. I'll use Chrome for recording, and I'll use RVL, Visual Language. So here is an empty test. I'm starting Chrome and navigating to the application. So this is the application we're going to test. And I start recording in Rupis. And it should connect to the browser. And when connection is successful, browser blinks. Okay, so I may start interacting with the application. So let's proceed to the login section. Okay, so actually application looks a bit different from what I was expecting. Hold on for a second. So I need to run it in incognito mode. Okay, much better now. Start recording. Okay, next. So this is the welcome screens that are shown when you only first time run the application. Next, start. So, and I will log in to the application. User great.com and very simple password. Login. So let's verify that we have at least one crate in our application. Actually, this application is about subscribing for packages with clothes delivered to your door on monthly basis. So it's kind of demo application, not a real service. So let's verify that we have at least one item for subscription. So I'm pressing Ctrl+1 to open the properties. And let's verify that we have at least one subscribe button. And now I'm going to log out from the application and navigate to the home page. Okay, let's finish. Okay, appending my steps. So here is my test. Here is my test, and let's check that we can execute it first on Chrome. So click and play, and Trapeze should open Chrome for me and perform all the steps. The next thing I'm going to do is to run this test on Android simulator. And I don't need to do any changes to the test to be able to run it on Android. I just need to do a few setup steps. So let's change the browser to use for playback. So here I have Android profile for my Android browser configured. So let's open it. And it's pretty simple. It contains the URL for Appium that will be listening for commands from Trapeze. And also, it contains, as a browser name, it has Android. So if we expand this value here, we have different browser names. Okay, so here it is. Since it's not actually something Selenium based, we need to provide additional capabilities for running this test on Appium. To do this, I need to go to Inflectra knowledge base. Okay, and here in the knowledge base, I do search for mobile. And we have an article explaining how to run a cross-browser test on a mobile device. So we need to have profiles for mobile device. It's described here, and we also need to place some code for passing additional capabilities to Appium. And I will just copy and paste this code here into user file of my test. Here I just need to specify what specific device I need to use for, I want to use for execution. So since it's Android, so let's modify versions here. I have Android OS version 9, and I want to execute on Chrome browser. So that's it. My test is configured for execution on Android. So click and play. Appium is running. So let's open our Mac host. Here is their simulator running. Appium now listens for commands from Trapeze and passes actions to Android simulator. So we can see that browser is opened. So let's magnify it. So browser is opened. In the terminal window, we see some login from Appium. It takes some time for application to load. So actually, mobile testing is the slowest one among desktop, web, and mobile testing. So be prepared to spend some time waiting for things to happen. So now we see that the test is executing, and most of the time is usually consumed by connection process. So when the application is running, then execution is pretty fast. Okay, so our test enters username, password, checks the grades, and performs logout. And we can see that everything works on Android. Okay, so and now in rupees we see the execution report. So works on Android. Let's do the same for iOS. So switching profile for iPhone here. Let's open it. It also contains the URL of the server that runs Appium. This is actually my Mac Mini machine. And the browser name is iPhone. And let's go to our user.js file. And here I just need to specify what is the device I want to use and what is the version of operating system it should run. Actually, I have simulator running iPhone X and iOS 11.4. Okay, so everything is ready for execution. Now I'm clicking play and switching to iOS, and we should see our test executing on simulator shortly. So Appium needs to install some additional components on the simulator. So we see Safari opening. This is our application. So the web version looks a bit quirky. So this is why Create also has native applications for iOS and for Android. But there are many applications that don't have dedicated clients, and what we recommend to do for them is do recording on a desktop and then do playback on mobile devices. If application looks differently on desktop and on mobile devices, then make sure that when you open the application on your desktop, the browser has dimensions resembling the mobile phone. So in this case, it will be closer to what you see on the phone. So if the application is built with Bootstrap, it will have hamburger without these individual menu items. Okay, so our web test works on devices and on desktop as well. So what we have next? Next, we are proceeding to testing on Android. So we'll be testing Android native application. And first, I'm going to record a native Android test. For this, I will create a new test. I will create it locally, and I will name it Create Android Test. This is a native mobile test, so I will choose mobile here in the list of choices. And I need to choose the profile for connecting to the device I'll be using for recording. I'll be using Android Simulator, and I have special profile created for Create. So I'm choosing it here, RVL. Okay, empty test is created. Let's look at the profile. So this is a real mobile profile, and it has URL of Appium running on the machine. Also, this profile specifies that I'll be using Android emulator. I'll be testing Android platform. The version of Android OS is 9, and here is in the app capability, I have the path to the application APK that I built on a machine. So you may get this APK probably from developers, and you need to put this file onto the machine where Appium is running and specify path to this file here in this app capability. Okay, so closing it. And now I am ready to start recording my test. So I start recording. So let's make it visible and switch to Android simulator. So to do recording, I need to open Spy. So unfortunately, at the moment, nobody can record mobile test this way. You launch the application, you do your actions right on the mobile phone with your fingers, and something magically records your step. Unfortunately, it doesn't work this way so far. What works is that we can mirror device image in a mobile spy and interact with this virtual representation. So I will connect to my device. To do this in Spy, I need to click Get Snapshot. And it is connecting to the application. You may see Appium logs doing something. So actually what Appium does is installing the application on the device automatically. Okay, so application is running and Trapeze gets the image of the device that you can see to the right, and also you may see the tree of elements in this application to the left. So here is how we can do recording. Actually, the image to the right is clickable. So if you want to click on some button, you need to select it on the image. So I'm clicking on account in the right bottom corner. And from the toolbar of the Spy, I may press tab, and it will pass tab action to this specific element. So you may already see on the left side that the application received my tab. And in the recording activity, as usual in Trapeze, we see the name of the object and the action performed. So let's do login. So I'm clicking email. So if you see this situation, it means that we have outdated snapshot. And to reload the snapshot with most recent data from the device, we need to click Get Snapshot button again. Clicking on email, and you can see that it is highlighted correctly. Here on the toolbar, I may specify the text I want to send to the element. So here I am typing user create.com and clicking send keys. And text is entered on the device. So let's enter password as well. Specifying password, send keys. Okay, and now I need to do submit. Tab. Okay, login is successful. And you can see that what we see in the Spy is a bit different from what we see on the device. So if sometimes you may not have access to real device or simulator, it may be in some cloud hosting like South Labs or BrowserStack or Python. And in this case, if you feel that you don't see the recent image of the device, just click Get Snapshots button. Okay, here it is. Let's go to Crates tab in this application. Okay, getting snapshot. Here it is. So, and now I'm going to click on account again and perform logout. Clicking, okay, profile is not selectable. Tab and clicking logout. Tap. Okay, so I think that my steps are recorded correctly. Click and finish. And this is my test. I'm going to modify it a bit. So what I want to do is to take a screenshot when we navigate to create tab in the application. So I will insert a couple of lines here. First, I want to wait a bit to allow this page to load. So I do global do sleep. So let's wait for about 3 seconds. And then I want to do a screenshot. So we have a global object called Android, and it has do screenshot action. What it does, it takes a screenshot and includes it into report. So now I am ready to run my test on Android simulator. So I'm hitting play, and Appium starts listening to my commands, to commands from Rupees, and hopefully it will launch the application and replay my test. So I see here is the application running, and all the steps are replayed. So again, when crates are loaded, we will have the screenshots. Okay, something did not work, so let's try to run it again. So it was a problem with screenshot taking on the device side. So we were probably too fast with this. So running again. So usually if something does not work, then try to rerun the test one more time, or maybe restart Appium. In many cases it helps. Okay, so we see crates. Okay, the screenshot works well, and logging out. So now everything was fine without any issues. And here in the report, we can see the screenshot from the device. So it shows us that everything works correctly. So why I did this screenshot is because now I'm going to execute my test on real Android device attached to this machine. You won't be able to see it, but we will see the screenshot from it. So I'm clicking play, and device is plugged in, and Appium installs application on it and will replay the action. So hopefully it will work, and we will see the screenshot. For our execution on the device in the mobile profile, I will show it when execution is complete. We need to specify ID of the device that is plugged to the computer. So to find out ID of the device, you may execute a specific command. So to find out the ID, you need to run adb devices command, and it will show you IDs of the devices on the machine. So let me magnify it. So emulator is my running emulator, and this digit is actually ID of the device I'm going to use for running the application. Okay, let's see how is our execution. So it did not connect to the device for some reason. So let's first check our mobile profile. Here it is. It also has URL of Appium. It also has path to the application to install, and this is the ID of the device where I want to execute. So let's try to run our application one more time, run our test one more time. And for this great application to work successfully, I also need, to run one more thing in the terminal, and it is here. I need to run for create application some magic command here. It is described in the create application. All right, so let's try executing again, and also let's restart our Appium as well. So this is what may happen with mobile testing. So the trickiest part is have your Appium connected to the device. Okay, so restarting it and running my test again. So it should work, I think, now. So what may happen from time to time if you don't touch device for some time, it just disconnects itself, or some port becomes busy. So reattaching the device usually helps. Okay, I see that test is executing, and now we will see the screenshot of the execution. And execution on the device was pretty fast. So opening of the screenshot, and this screenshot is from real Android Nexus hardware. Okay, so we are finishing with Android and proceeding to iOS native testing. So, okay, I am going to create a new test. Another remark about mobile testing, even if the application is looks almost the same on Android and on iOS, there is no way to create a test for Android, for example, and run it without any changes on iOS. And this is why we need to record separate tests for those two platforms, Android and iOS. So I'm creating a new test locally. Let's name it create iOS test. It is mobile test. And I have profile for iOS simulator. RVL, empty test is created. Let's review the profile for the iOS simulator. It has URL for Appium server. It has path to iOS application. And here we specify the name of the device and the operating system and its version that should be running. Okay, so now I'm going to start recording. So let's bring Android iOS simulator here to the top. Again, I need to run spy. So my actions are pretty much the same for iOS as for Android. So clicking get snapshot, and Appium runs the application. Here it is, and I will get the image very soon. Okay, so let's record simul test. So clicking on account, and then okay, we can see here that our tab is processed. So let's move it a bit to the left. All right. And let's open the SPI, move it here. Okay, so now I'm going to send username, user to username. So there is no much difference between recording the test for iOS and Android. What is different is the way how you build those applications using different tools, Xcode and Android Studio. So password, sending keys here. All right. It takes some time for passing snapshot to repeat side. And here I need to click on submit. Recording on iOS is a bit slower for native application than on Android. Okay, so first click on submit, close the keyboard. So I need to click on submit one more time in this application. Okay. And to save some time, I will just do log out on the application. Clicking on the profile. And the last action is to click on logout. Clicking logout. The speed of recording may depend on the version of Appium as well. So sometimes it's faster, sometimes it's a bit slower. But this is the best what we have at the moment in mobile testing world. Okay, so let's finish our recording. Actually, Appium is used under the hood by different frameworks and different test automation tools. Test frameworks are usually used by developers who prefer to program in some language, for example, Java or maybe even PHP, that have bindings for Appium. As for testers, they prefer to use test automation tools because test automation tools like Rupes provide object repository, codeless environment for test modification. So let's actually modify it and add a screenshot. Let's add first some weight to allow login to occur. And then let's add the screenshot. For iOS, we have a global object iOS, and we just need to do screenshot here. Okay, the test is ready for execution, and I will play it. So testers prefer to use test automation tools because they provide codeless environment and they provide object repository and reporting, and a lot of things are out of the box. So execution is faster than recording. So we can see data is entered. So it works on the simulator, and last thing I want to do is to run this test. Okay, so let's run it again. Last thing I want to do is to run on iOS real device as well. So application is installed. So I want to see the screenshot. So what I'm showing now is the basics of mobile testing. I'm not going deeper into how to build the application. As usual, there will be an article published on Medium, and it will have more information than in the webinar, and it will have some tips and tricks about where to get, for example, this path of the application to put here, and how to do this, how to do that, how to configure the environment. So you will find very useful links there in the article. After the webinar, you will receive an email with this information. Let's switch to device. So here is my device, and I'm hitting play. And after execution, we should see the screenshot from real device. So while it is executing, so what's happening? Let's check it. Usually it makes sense to run once again. So mobile multiplied by demo effect produces interesting results. So I hope it will work this time. Yeah, I see the application running on the device. So when it will be finished, we will proceed to Q&A session. So probably you have some questions. If you did not write them yet, to go to webinar window, you may do this while it is test is executing. Okay, so execution on the mobile device is slower than on simulator. One thing to mention, if you plan to do testing on iOS, then besides Xcode and the source of the application, you will need Apple developer account and a security certificate that Xcode will be using to sign the application. So without Apple developer account, testing on iOS is not possible. And with Appium, you can test only the applications that you may install on a device and that you build yourself. It's not possible to, for example, on iOS, you cannot interact with default applications provided by Apple. So you may only interact with your application. Okay, so let's look at the screenshot. Aha! So execution was successful, and we have information from our real physical device here. So thanks for listening, and we are ready for questions.
Thank you so much, Dennis. That was a great presentation. I do see that we have a question, a few questions in our question and answer box there. If you have questions, I encourage you to go ahead and type them in now. The first question I see is RAPIS included on Spira team plan?
RAPIS is not included in Spira team plan, but if we go to Inflectra website and we go to pricing, you may purchase Inflectra products separately, and there are also bundles. There is a button at the top, see bundles. And if you purchase a Spira plan and RAPIS together, then you may get a significant discount for that.
Okay, great. I think our colleague Alexi has joined us as well. Alexi, would you like to ask the next question?
Yep, sure. Thank you, Teresa. And we have a few more questions. First is there a way to replay a test and continue recording from the point where the test stopped?
Good question. Yeah, so since RAPIS 6.2, which was released in September, this is possible to do. So let me actually switch to Android. It works faster than iOS. And I will show how you can leave the session running after test execution and continue recording from where execution stopped. So this is our test. Here it is. And let's go to the test, main test file. And it's possible to leave the session running and to reconnect to running session. To do this, we need to add special lines of code here. To find out the code, let's go to RAPIS documentation website. You may also open it using help, online help menu here. And here there is the section for reconnecting mobile session with the video. And what we need here is when the test execution is finishing, we will do save session. So test finish is the function that is executed automatically at the end of test execution. And also in the test prepare, we will use this reconnect session. True here means that if session is not running, we should create one. All right, so let's run our test on Android simulator. So you will see how it is executing. And after execution, we should see the application still running on the simulator, and we'll be able to reconnect to it and to do additional recording without reloading the application. This is handy because we always advise to do recording in batches. And when you recorded something and ensured it works, proceed to next steps. Okay, so let's see. I think I know why the application was loaded twice. I need to comment something. Okay, so the execution should be finished and the application should remain running. Okay, so you see RAPIS is blinking, application is still running. To not do reconnect again, we just need to remove this line. And now I can just press record here on the toolbar. And if I open SPY, it automatically connects. And this is very fast because application is loaded, Appium is connected, and we see the snapshot immediately, and we may proceed with recording. So hitting tab, clicking finish, and additional action is added to my test. Here it is. And the application is still running. I may proceed with additional sessions of recording. So hopefully I answered the question. Do we have more, Alexei?
Yeah, we have more question, and next question is mobile automation can only use MacBook ? But not in Windows OS ?
Or good question. Actually, you may do mobile automation on Windows, but only if you are going to test Android applications. So if we move to RP's documentation and open preparing for Android testing, here you may find guidelines how to set up Android testing on Windows and on macOS as well. So you may install Android Studio and Appium on Windows machine as well, but you won't be able to test iOS applications. Do we have more questions?
So we need Mac for iOS, and we don't need Mac for Android.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But you can test both on Mac, yes.
Okay, I think we are done with questions. Guys, if you have more questions, you may still type them, and we will answer them to you directly by email. So you may feel free. As for now, we are out of questions.
Okay, great. Thank you again to Dennis for today's presentation. We will send out an email in a couple of days with a link to the recording of the webinar. We hope that you'll join us for the next webinar in the series titled Automating REST SOAP API UI Testing, which is scheduled for Wednesday, December 4th at 10 a.m., 2 weeks from today. So this concludes today's session. Thanks again to my colleagues Alexei and Dennis.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for attending.
Thanks for watching.